Hello, hello, everybody. I'm so glad we're all here. Let me see here. Oh, there we go. Radar Wiley. Good morning. So good to see everybody here. I'm super excited. I have my friends texting me and I'm trying not to look up in the corner. Well, here we are. It is July the 13th. Oh, it's my sister-in-law's birthday. And I am just super duper excited to have all of you here. I am, I find summer is just such an interesting time. And I think that we can't help but just sort of like have some interesting things come up. So I wanted to chat about that. Where are you from? What are you drinking? Megan is here from Saskatchewan and she has a fresh cup of coffee and she is good to go. That is good. I have a water. This is a leftover a cup of water from last night. Um, and yeah, hello, Nicole. I just finished my tea. So my kids are teenagers now. Like my oldest just graduated, and then I have one that's turning 16 and one that's turning 14. So I am able to sleep in a little bit. So I got up, like I rolled out of bed at like 7:45. It was great. Hello, Nicole. You're from New Hampshire. Anita from the Netherlands with the usual caramel latte. Anita, I'm like jealous with how many caramel lattes you drink. Mama Cat, good morning. Cute nail polish. Yes, I wanted to go for like a summer look. So yes, I wanted the sun and then the sky and some clouds. Thank you. I'm not a super girly person. I mean, I definitely am a girl, but I just am not like super into the makeup. Like clearly I showed up today with no makeup on and like dark circles under my eyes, but I do like to do my nails. I like it. I like it. Okay. Who else is here? Agatha Smith from Louisiana, Elisa from Alabama, North Carolina, Casey, Rachel, Oklahoma. Hello, hello. Oh, Kathy, you're from Airdrie, Alberta. I know exactly where that is. I've been there. Agatha, oh, thank you. Christy from San Diego. San Jose is where Radar Wiley's from. Cheryl Bowers from Ohio. No drink. Oh my gosh. I gotta have my drink. Sally, who is a nomad, and she is in Idaho. Fifth wheel. I love it, but you're actually from Missouri. It's interesting how I know a lot of the state acronyms being Canadian. We just pick it up. So much American culture is thrown our way. Good morning, just north of Calgary. I love it. Oh, there's smoke there. Hey, hello from Everett. Debbie's here from Dundee, Colorado, Mama Cat. Claudia from Germany, Regina. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy so many of you are here. Well, I just wanted to come on because, summer is such an interesting time. And for me, when I think of summer, I think of like activity and being busy, all of the things you can do. But one of the things that really happens when I start living, especially like once June is a very energizing month, I feel like. We're like, yeah. But then for me, and I don't know if this is for everybody, but for me, once July hits, I it's almost excuse me, like I'm transported back in time to the time when I was a kid and it was summer and there was a lot of downtime and like boredom and introspection and just sort of like sitting around. And I remember there was this one summer where my parents brought us to this lake every night, which sounds nice, but we hated going to the lake every single night. It was just like every single night, right? But now I feel like, and I don't think kids nowadays really get this opportunity, and I know my kids don't because they spend way too much time on their devices, but well, maybe a bit, but it's that time for introspection and that time for being slow. And I was thinking this morning how, in relation to decluttering and in relation to, I might try this. Let's see. Because people always say they can't see the comments. on the replay. So maybe I'll do that. Anyway, so they like for me, I feel like it is as far as decluttering goes, a really good opportunity to declutter an area of your house where you might run into a few sentimental things or things that are harder to declutter. And I feel like, yes, I totally get that, mama cat. And I feel like it's a really good opportunity to make peace with a lot of things. Like, so for me, my father passed away a year and a half ago, and I think I this is the first, like, very person who's passed away that I was, like, very close to, and I assume I will just sort of always be like, "Oh, man, like, I wish I could talk to dad about that," or, "I wish I could do this or that," but I think that's so much in life where we really are just, like, going through accepting certain things. And I think that not only is summer like that, but winter is like that too, for me anyway. And so I just want to encourage you that I know summer is such a fun time to go out and be busy and active. And if that's what you're doing, I think that's great. And I think you don't need to stop that. But if you are frustrated with your house and the clutter and things like that, I think summer is a good time to dive into some of those sentimental things, particularly because the sun often makes a lot of us happier and it makes a lot of us feel more energized. And it just can sort of like give us a boost if we're feeling a little bit down. And my past editor, who is now my friend, she lives in near Phoenix. Oh my gosh, it is so hot there. It's like I think she said it was going to be 48 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it sounds like absolute hell. And she says, like, you can't do anything. So I could see how maybe it's not exactly the same as energizing. So Angie says, I'm a former hoarder and it's hard to let anything go, especially since I may be getting married soon. So I look at everything as I may need it. And I think that's a very interesting thing for a lot of people. And a lot of people, when they are decluttering, they come across so many things and they think, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know I had this, or I forgot I had this. Oh my gosh, I think I might need this. But I think that it's very important to be real with ourselves. And I had somebody who commented, I think a week or two ago, and they said, "Is- decluttering is only for people with money because then you can rebuy things that you decluttered." And I don't think that's necessarily true because I think that we're decluttering things not expecting to bring them back. Yes, there is the odd thing that you might think, "Oh my gosh, like I decluttered that and I might actually or I might have to buy that again." But that is very rare. For me, I have decluttered a significant amount of our house, like I would say 50% of our stuff, and only a few times, like, and I can't even think of an example, but I'm just sure I have probably like once or twice. I've been like, oops, I decluttered that. I need to buy that again. And I actually don't even, I literally can't even think of an example. And so I think it's important for you to say to yourself, the chances that you may need something in the future are very low. And if they are, and this thing costs less than $20, I suggest that you declutter it. And if you really, really, really feel like you need to buy this thing again, then buy it again. But I am telling you, the chances are low. Like I am a person who I cook a lot, I garden, I have a lot of hobbies, and I can't think of a thing that I have repurchased. I just assume I probably have bought like at least one, but I can't even think of it, right? And you need to ask yourself, what is more important? Potentially having this thing that I may need in the future or having an environment that is serving me. Because you might be getting married again one day and you might think like, "Hey, you know what? I actually really really want to start this new marriage with a an environment that is just like serves us and makes it so it like nurtures our relationship. And I think that people really, really, really need to recognize that your stuff is holding you back from the sort of like your maximum happiness. And a lot of people, they're sort of satisfied with sort of like and I'm not insulting anybody, but I'm just saying like a mundane type of existence when it could be better. And I mean, you could be like happy, and I'm just calling that mundane because I'm just saying it could be that much better. I think that for me, um, as a nurse, and I've seen people who were young pass away early. I've seen people who were older pass away very early. I've seen people who were older and then they had a broken hip, and that was a catastrophic injury. Um, and I've just seen people, and so their life changed significantly. And I really, really am so passionate that people recognize that life is such an amazing gift. And I feel like, why wouldn't you want your home to be the best place in the world? Like yesterday, my family and I went to this beautiful mountaintop lake called Strathcona Park on Vancouver Island. It's so beautiful and I love it. It's literally my favorite place in the world, second to my house, because I love my house so much. My house is serving me and it makes me feel comforted. And I love when I walk in the door, I'm like, I'm home. And my home is an environment that just lifts me up. And I know you might be like, well, it does that for me too. But if you have piles of things and you have clutter and you open a drawer and you're like, like, right? Like, I get that. And that still happens to me. Like, I still like, there's a spot in my garage I'm going to tidy up later because I'm like, oh, that's like really starting to bug me because I know that it is good for me to like walk by something and be like, I love how that looks. And yes, Debbie, I'm glad that that helps. And yes, if you need hip surgery, right? Like it's just like so good to be in a soothing environment. Like let's make the very best of our life. Is sort of what my point is. Debbie says I've decluttered over 70% of our stuff and I haven't rebought anything. Yay! My family and neighbors will borrow or lend things if I need them. Yeah, and that's just it. Like remember, and I've also had people who have commented and been like, "Oh, you shouldn't borrow things or lend things and blah 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 blah." And I get it. Like we had a thing that we let somebody borrow and he destroyed it, and it was like $400 probably. It was like a pressure washer and he just damaged it. He did not take care of it. Like that was how he took care of his things. So obviously you need to know who you're lending things to. And if you borrow something, you take the very best care. And there are certain things I would not borrow from somebody because if something went wrong, I would not want it to be damaged. However, I'm a big fan of renting things if I have to, because if I'm not going to use it very often, why wouldn't I just rent it? Right. And I think that, like borrowing this or that and lending things is still a great thing, especially if it's not easily broken and you're going to take care of it because that is community. Like where has our community gone? Hello, Sylvia. Our community was like we would like back in the medieval times and not even that long ago, probably the 50s and earlier, like we so and so, like Jane had this thing that I would like to borrow. Will I borrow it? Right? Like certain things, of course, everybody would have a sewing machine or whatever. But hello, Donine. I'm glad you're here. I find and Megan says, I find I just don't see the clutter sometimes, and that's cool. Realized this week we have badminton rackets hanging in the garage, tennis ones too. Haven't used them in years. Time to donate. Exactly. And you know what? I 100% understand that. And we become blind to things, and I think that it truly is just sort of how our brains are designed to operate, that we're not always noticing things. Like we don't notice new things. Our brain is designed that we notice new things. It's like a safety thing and whatever, and that's cool, right? Like it happens to me too. Like I'm telling you, oh my gosh, my cat is outside and he has a snake. Ugh. Anyway, yeah, like my kids, they finish school, right? So then they bring home their stuff and then there's like a pile that sits in the dining room. And at first you think like, oh, and for me in particular, because my kids are teenagers, like 2 of them have jobs. And when they're not here, I'm like, I need to remind so and so to pick up this. Well, then I can't remember. And it's just like a whole thing. And so like the more the kids are around, their stuff is out and you become numb to it, right? And that's okay. Angie says, I collect kitchen appliances, which I can't get myself to get rid of. They were expensive. Okay, Debbie, that's the thing. Now, if you're not using them, I want you to ask yourself, what is the price you're paying? Yes, they were expensive. And yes, you paid money for them. And I get that. And there was something I bought not too long ago, and I thought, like, why did I buy this? Like, I'm not using this. And so I decluttered it because I was like, I'm not keeping something because I spent money on it. What I use it for is an opportunity to um, adjust my buying in the future, to learn. And the thing is, you can also, for something like an appliance, that is something I would sell. I am all for donating as much as possible, but I don't feel like we need to, like, we can definitely sell things that cost a little bit of money. And yes, like, sure, say you bought an appliance for $200 and you're selling it for 50 or whatever. Yeah, that's not good, but that is an opportunity to learn. Like, if you're not using it, and I mean, I for sure understand the love of like little kitchen appliances. Like, I am there. I used my ice cream maker just the other day and I was like, "Oh, thank God." Like, if I use it at least once a year, I feel like, "Okay, good. I am using it, I will keep it." But even then, if I was like, it's taking up a lot of space, I only use it once a year, I don't really need to make ice cream that much, I would declutter it, right? My son, he really, really, really wants a rice cooker because he watches this guy called Uncle Roger on YouTube, and he's always talking about rice cookers. And he's like, I want a rice cooker. And I'm like, listen, we have an Instant Pot, cook rice in that. We can cook rice on the stove. Like, I feel like in my house, I don't need a rice cooker. He wants it. If he's moving out soon and he buys it, that's fine, but he's taking it with him because I don't need another appliance in my house that I'm not using. So that is my suggestion. Sell them. Understand that, yes, it's a loss, but it's still a loss if it's sitting in your house if you're not using it. It's still a total waste of money. So Pam says, you've motivated me so much. My home is becoming easier to clean and just be able to enjoy a good book, garden, or my cats. That is exactly what I love to hear and what I would love for more people to do. Doneen says, we moved here 15 years ago, put storage in garage rafters and literally never touched it. Yes. See, you realize that. Why do you have it? Yes, my challenge is I can't reach too high. My husband isn't into decluttering. Help. Say, can you please get that down for me? I need to look for something in it. And then you can be like, I'm letting it go. I feel you. I am 5'1". I need help reaching a lot of things. You could also just get like a step ladder or something, but I would definitely say like, I want to look through that stuff and just see what's in there. Sally, and also like remember, like, I don't know if any of you saw the video I did with Lindsay, the relationship coach, but she had so many good tips, and it would just be like communicating like why the clutter bothers you, no blame at all, but just sort of like if you wanted to. But for me, I would honestly just say like, can you get this down? I need to look in it, and then I would just declutter a lot of it. Sally says, I have 6 kids, 19 years apart. I had bins for the kids in the hallway. I would toss their stuff that was left out in there, and then they were responsible for emptying it when it got full. I think that is so good. And see, and that's just it, Elisa or Eliza. Kept the rice cooker and gave away the Instant Pot. Exactly. Like, you do what works for you. I 100% love that. Love, love, love it. That reminds me, I am doing oh, let me see. We had a ham the other day because I was cleaning out the freezer, and there's so much leftover ham. I thought, boy, we need to buy more ham so when they're on sale at like Easter and whenever they go on sale, because the food leftover was great. So anyway, I'm making and canning some pea soup today. So I was like, we were talking about instant pots. I thought I need to make some broth. Can you guys see the text on the screen? I can't, and I'm hoping it's just me. This program I'm using is starting to get a little glitchy. Okay. So some of the questions I had this week when I put a call out on YouTube and Facebook for questions, and I don't know if anybody even put one on Facebook. So let me look here. Just triple check. But one of the questions I got on YouTube was about, I'd love to hear your tips for starting a decluttering journey when you are physically limited. I'm pregnant and low energy, but pregnancy means I need to work on space because this baby needs some space. And I think that is a very interesting question because and good because so many people, whether or not you're pregnant or you have kids, you are going to need space. So, and if you are tired from pregnancy or age or just conditions or whatever, then it's definitely good to to you still need to declutter. And so we can all relate to that being tired. I'm very inarticulately saying this. I think I'm also trying to multitask, which is never good. Okay, good, Megan. You can see the text on the screen. That's good. I can't, but it doesn't, I can also see it on the side. So that's good. Okay. So what I would do if I was low energy and still wanted to do some decluttering is think about it this way. You can set yourself little goals every day to get it done. You have some energy. It's just very hard and you're very tired. And I completely understand that. But there's this story. I can't remember. I haven't actually seen the movie, but I've listened to it in this book. I can't remember if it's You Are a Badass. I think it's You Are a Badass at Money. I love those books. But she tells the story of this movie with this guy who was in a plane crash in the mountains, and um, he has, I believe, one broken leg. He is just super messed up. Like, he is dehydrated. He's just completely sunburnt because, of all the snow and the sun and everything, and he can't see very well and all of this. And he has so far to go, like over mountains and mountains and mountains to get to help. And so this guy probably had no energy, yet he had this desire to get, to safety. And so what he would do is he would like look at his watch and he would say, in 20 minutes, I am getting to that location. And he would pick a location off in the distance and he would just get there no matter what. He did what he had to do to get there. And he just made it his mission. And so I think that when we are low energy, what we can do is honor that we're low energy and say, yeah, I am low energy. And so I can't do as much as I normally can when I'm not pregnant or when I am um or just, you can even just say, like, I just don't have as much energy as some people. And so what you say is, I am going to take my timer. I love this timer. And it's in my Amazon shop. And you can say, even if you can't even do 20 minutes, 5 minutes, it's shocking how much you can get done in 5 minutes. Shocking. Like, I told this story in a recent video where I was like watering the front grass for 5 minutes. And I was just like, yes, like donating to a 5 minute timer. I would be like, there's still 2 minutes left. I got all this stuff done already. So even if you just said, in the morning, I am doing 5 minutes, or in the afternoon, I am doing 5 minutes, and you just like go for those 5 minutes. And if you can extend it, that's great. There are times when I'm working out and I will say, like, I'm only doing like one set. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, okay, I can do another set. Right. So it's sort of just like setting yourself little milestones. And then for me, I always like to reward myself. It's usually with a cup of tea. You can do whatever you want, but I like to just sort of have a cup of tea, put on some Max Miller or like Dancing Bacons, like YouTube channels that I love, and just like relax. So that is how I tackle the low energy. If your energy is so low that you can't get anything done, then you need to talk to your doctor. You might have low iron or something else. And then Texas Blue Bonnet Let me see. Texas Blue Blonde. Oh my gosh, I'm really struggling. Texas Blue Bonnet asks, how do you help teenagers get rid of extra clothes? They want to keep everything. So when I was I had to research this one because teenagers are tricky. Now I have teenage boys who it is easier for them to get rid of clothes because this is about clothes. I have one teenage boy who is he doesn't really like to declutter unless he's just sort of in a mood where, he has to clean his room and he doesn't feel like it. And he's just sort of like, I'm just like, take all of this. Right. But as for clothes, sometimes, last summer he bought these clothes and they were so ugly, you guys. And thankfully this year I was like, clean your room because his room's always messy. And he just like threw this pile of clothes in the hallway and he's like, I don't want these anymore. And I was like, perfect. That is good. So I was doing some research here for how you can encourage somebody, whether or not it's your teenager or your husband or whatever, somebody to do some cleaning. And I think that number one, and you could definitely go back and watch that video I did with Lindsay about the relationships, because if you say like you need to clean your room, which I am guilty of, like that probably is like always how I do it, which is not good. Like it would be more sort of like, I recognize that this is a little bit messy, or like I recognize you have some clothes that you need to go through. And do you find like you're wearing them all? And do you notice how like it's kind of like tight? Because for me in my closet, when it's really tight, I can't like see what I want. And it doesn't actually make sense to buy more clothes when I have all of these clothes. So maybe we could just see if some of these clothes you're not using anymore. And I I would actually suggest if you're teenager, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, if your teenager doesn't want or if they want your help, that's great. That is best case scenario. And of course, you're going to want to come at it in a very, very neutral way and sort of like you don't care because with teenagers they're just so like headstrong in a lot of ways, and it would just sort of be like, yeah, like it's is tight in there, and like don't really school's coming up. This is actually a great opportunity, especially if you're in the northern hemisphere where we're on summer break, and say like, hey, like, are we going to go school clothes shopping? We'll need to make room for those new clothes that you're bringing in, and are you wearing these old clothes? So that is what I would do. And then I did some research. So one of the things would be like setting a goal, right? You could do that, especially I think that would actually work very well for a teenager if you said, like, let's declutter 20 items. And if they're like, oh, just like declutter these old underwear, I'd be like, yeah, underwear don't really count. Like, let's go for like shirts and pants or something like that. If whatever, and you decide the number, and then sorting into categories, right? Like tops and bottoms, and like what works well together and what doesn't. And you could also just be like, when did you wear that last? But I think the most important thing with teenagers is to come at it from a neutral perspective. Um, and also just sort of like really, really, really respecting their space. Okay. And so Rachel says, my mother in law has bought me expensive gifts, but they are not practical for my family and time in life. I want to sell them, but she literally looks for gifts and asks about them. Ooh, that's a tough one, especially if she's looking for the gifts and asks about them. But I think this is a very good opportunity to practice honoring yourself and being honest with her and with you. And so if she was to say, um, where is that blah 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 I gave you, which is very odd. I can't even imagine doing that. But if you did say that, if she did say, I could you could also just say, I let that go because that just was not practical for our family. And she might not like that, but what are you going to do? We have to start setting boundaries with people. And I've had family members who have given me things, and I didn't use them, but why would I keep something I don't use because somebody else thought I would want it even though I don't and I don't use it? Like it doesn't sound nice to say that, but it's true. And yes, Sally is saying boundaries needed. Yes, you do need to have your boundaries. And, as I've gotten older, like I'm turning 44, I'm not super old, but I certainly have learned the importance of boundaries and just saying like, "I'm sorry, I don't use that." And you can explain why the clutter is bad for you. And I really like how Julie says, "Pack it up and put it out when she visits." I mean, that's an option, but that isn't really a healthy option, right? Like you could just although totally an option. Like who knows if it's going to create like a huge wedge, it's like Julie says, not worth creating the wedge if it's going to create a wedge. Um and depending on the relationship you have with her, right? Like I have a very good relationship with my mother-in-law. And if I said, yeah, I decluttered that, sorry, it just wasn't, I don't think she would like it. She's, but I think that she would appreciate it. That is a snazzy timer, isn't it? It's called a time timer. I love it. And it also has a sound that it makes, but I just keep it here and just sort of like see it. It's very helpful. Okay. So VD says, if you have very little space, what to do with clothes that don't fit you if your weight is always fluctuating? So I did a video about this recently too, and there are a couple of things you can consider. Number one, how close to your how can I say this? How close to the size those clothes how many sizes different is it from what you are to what these clothes are? If your weight is always fluctuating, well, then, you know, if all of the clothes fit you at some point in each year or years, few years, then I guess you would want to keep them. I think that another strategy would be like addressing why your weight is always fluctuating. And, I certainly can't really give advice on that, but talking to your physician might be a good idea. But I think that where to store them? Well, my mom, she used to keep her winter clothes in her suitcases, and then switch them out with her summer clothes. For me, I just try not to have a ton of clothes. I wear a lot of sweatshirts and comfortable clothes because I work at home most of the time. When I'm working as a nurse, there are scrubs, which is handy, but I do like to have a few nice things, so if I go out for dinner with friends or whatever, I have those options. But I think that really being honest with yourself and, maybe, for example, say you were a size like 10 and you had some size 14 clothes, like almost like would having those clothes be helpful? Being like, "Oh, now I have clothes that I can fit into if I gain a lot of weight?" Probably not. Or say you were a size 10 and you had size 6 clothes, I would be like, "How long ago was I a size 6? And am I actively working on getting to be a size 6 again? And then am I planning to go to higher size again?" Like, I know you're obviously not planning, but it is complicated. Um and Radar Wiley says, my weight also fluctuates. I keep the groups of sizes stored in vacuum bags and suitcases under the bed. There you go. That's a perfect option. And Julie says, maybe crest a cap or probably create a capsule wardrobe for the sizes or just one size up, one size down. And that's what I was thinking. Like, that's what I'm trying to very inarticulately say is, I don't think you'd want huge size differences, right? Unless it's very frequent that you're going up and down. All right. Some time ago, to clutter my bedroom, it made me feel uncomfortable. So obviously, I have some unresolved emotional issues. Your channel is also helpful. My biggest issue is motivation. Thank you. Yeah, and motivation, I think ultimately, you need to find what motivation works for you. So for me, my motivation is that I want to feel comfortable and at peace in my own home, and I want my home to be a refuge from the world. So yes, I think good for you. And when you decluttered your bedroom and it made you uncomfortable and you had unresolved emotional issues, exactly what I have a program actually that I'm working on, and it is for people um, who really, really struggle with letting go. Like they're just like, I can't let go. I don't know why, but no matter what I do, I just can't let go. So I because I think that so many of us, like, for whatever reason, if we feel like we need to be prepared and we're just like, "Oh my gosh, like, I just so desperately need to be prepared." I think that the deeper reason is, like, why do you feel like that? Why do you feel like is there an anxiety? Like, what is the component for that? And why is it like stuff is giving you that sense of security? And not that you necessarily have to declutter a bunch of things, but why is that? And for some people, it's like they came from a family where maybe there was like the depression era parents or grandparents, and so that filtered down where there's a lot of guilt about letting things go. So we will be tackling that. And then also another thing is like some people they what is it, I think a big thing that we really want to explore is what is it that keeping this stuff tells you about yourself, right? And what are you telling yourself? And then how is it we break through all of that so you can actually like have peace and be happy letting go. So I do actually have a wait list you can join if you're interested in that. I know I did not explain it well, but there's the link right there. It just says, oh, you missed it because that was, I had my Simplify Your Home. Let me see if I click. There we go. This is actually a better link. Yeah, so there was another question on the old YouTube, and it was like, "How do you get the minimalist mindset into your little kids? They make the economy go round, slime, fidgets, goodie bags, etc." And I love that. I thought that was so funny because that is something when I was a kid, I remember that, and I had like 2 junk drawers in my dresser like, there were probably, like, 6 drawers in this dresser, and 2 of them were full of just, like, stuff and things from goodie bags, like, random just pieces of like, let's be honest, pieces of garbage. So what I do now is, or what I did do was I would just, like, go through with them and just say, like, "Do you notice how" and I think a big thing is to just really ask people, like, "Do you notice how this is making you feel?" I remember once saying to my kids because they were getting, like, a ton of sugar in the summer, and, I said to my husband, like, "I feel like I'm fighting against him and both of our moms with giving our kids too much sugar." But now they're teenagers, so, like, what are you gonna do? But I remember saying to my kids once, like, I want you to pay attention to how this sugar makes you feel. And my sweet middle son, I just have to laugh because he is very very much a sugar eater, but he said it makes me feel bad. And so I think you could say to your kids, like, how do you like when your room is clean? Or how do you like when this spot is clean? And you could even just like, if they're really young, like play a game and be like, look at this. Do you notice like how much nicer this is? And do you play with this toy? You could also start a very fun game like like a penalty box is what I call it. What is it? Dawn, the minimal mom calls it like a time will tell box, and you could call it some like other funny name, but or going gone box and just put things in there. And if they don't use it, then you can say, we're going to declutter it. Um, you could even say in 2 weeks, if you don't use it, I'm just going to like declutter it. You may or may not be here. Maybe that would work. That's an idea. But I think like one of the biggest things with kids and with spouses and with everybody is really just modeling good behavior and just recognize. And like when you're shopping, you could even say, like, you could pick something up and say, I really want to buy this, but you know what? Where would I put it? And if I put it there, would it seem messier when I put it there? So that you're kind of just sharing your thought process of the minimalist mindset and just explaining, like, I really like how clean and tidy this room is. Um, and yeah, Dinah says offer it back to her. Yeah, I think that that is usually the best case scenario because a lot of times people feel very like betrayed if you just like declutter their stuff. So I don't usually recommend that unless they're like really little. Uh, but yes, so I think definitely it's funny the amount of stuff that is thrown at little kids to consume, and it's a very good opportunity. So I think the number one thing is modeling. And Julie says, my kids have one special drawer for stuff. Once it couldn't close, they had to pick and choose what to keep. Yeah, and that's like the container method that Dana K. White uses. Oh, water. Christy, sweet Christy, she's been in our community for so long. She says, this may be off topic. What differences, if any, do you see between Canada and the USA with stuff and clutter? I don't think there are any differences. Um, there's a Canadian YouTuber named JJ McCullough, and he does a lot of videos about culture. He did a very interesting one about Americans who hate America, and I would recommend everybody watch it, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, especially if you're American. So interesting. And anyway, what he often talks about is and also, like, if you don't hate America, watch it because it's a very sad thing, and he just talks about a lot of very cool things. I really liked it, even as a Canadian. But anyway, so he often talks about like how the Canada and the US, our cultures are very, very similar. There are a lot of differences, but there are a lot of things that are really similar. And I would definitely say when it comes to stuff and clutter, it is like the exact same. Definitely, like I can't even think of like for me, and I have like American Family, um, and like tons of, viewers and clients. I don't think there are any differences at all as far as clutter and stuff goes. Uh Yes, Radar Wiley loves the container method. Elizabeth Lopez, it's been hard for me to let go. My husband passed away in November of 2022. Oh my goodness. You know what? That is very recent, Elizabeth. And I would not be rushing to do any decluttering. Like you, my dear, God bless you, are just still in the very beginning of like the grieving phase. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Um, if you felt like you needed to do some decluttering, only declutter your stuff until you feel like it is a time that you could. Monique says it's the same in the UK. Yeah, like I almost feel like it's a Western culture thing. I really feel like it is. There are, and when it comes to Canada, and that's why I can't even think of one of JJ's videos about I'm looking at the hmm, um where he talks about the differences, but there are just so many more similarities than there are differences, I think is the point. And even the same with like the UK. I think it's like a Western culture thing. And maybe even beyond that. I just don't know as much about other cultures. Really? No, I don't. I'm not going to say I do. Does anybody have any more questions? Monique says, yes, indeed. Yeah, I don't have any more questions ready for today. This has been so lovely to chat with you guys, but I do encourage you to really take this opportunity. When it is summer, it is just easier to do everything, I feel like, unless you are somewhere like Phoenix where you're literally dying of the heat. But it is just so much easier to do things. It's easier to move around. It's easier to take things places. Like here, I live on Vancouver Island. It rains a lot. So when, like rain doesn't, you're not going to melt, but it's just less pleasant. Well, it's nice right now. And actually I'm going to be cleaning my deep freezer and I'll be making a video on that because I have an amazing tip for you. And it's easier for me to do right now because it's not a heat wave. I wouldn't want to do it in a heat wave, but it's not super cold. Like if it was super cold, I wouldn't want to be out in the garage, right? And same with like a lot of things. It's just easier to take the time to slow down and process some of the feelings, some of the reasons why we have all of these things. Process why sometimes it's hard to let things go. Hi, Risa. Right. Christy says USA Northeast summer is easier to clean out. I've always thought that. Yeah, like it's just like everything is lighter and easier in the summer for the most part. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming. It was so fun to see you all. And I hope you are having a great summer. And I